Perfect.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 22 of Hobby Hotline, the only live call-in show in the hobby with over 200 years experience in the hobby combined. We're here every single Saturday and Monday to talk the hobby with you guys. And as you guys know myself, my name's Drew, and today I am joined by the one and only Mr. Ben Wilson, our trading cards. How's it going, man?
Good morning, gentlemen.
All right. And then also joining us, Stashless. I almost did not recognize him, but it is gone. Mr. Mike Sommer. What's up, man?
How's it going?
Doing good. First off, happy Independence Day to everybody. Happy 4th. Got to get that out of the way.
Everybody stay safe. Today,
Yes.
morning might be the last time some of us have 10 fingers. So let's be careful.
Yes. And by the way, guys, this is episode 22. This is not a mosaic break, which for some reason Restream is trying to tell you it is. So it is Hobby Hotline today. I don't know exactly what Restream's doing there, but we'll get it all figured out. As always, guys, would love for you to call in and join the show. I'm putting the link in the chat right now. So if there's any questions you have, anything whatsoever, then as always, feel free to click that little link and jump on in. But guys, I guess before we even started the show, apparently we had a couple of questions that I believe were sent to us. Mike, was that what it was?
Yeah, there's a couple questions that got sent in, and I thought we could go ahead and start with the first one, and it came from CL Cardboard. And he says, I hear the term master set thrown around and was curious what exactly that means. Does that mean the base plus every insert, every parallel, every short print? Thanks. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say, I think there's probably a couple different definitions, and some people might have some slightly different definitions to the term master set. And part of it probably depends on which product line you're talking about.
Right.
Typically, I'll throw out there when I talk about a master set from Heritage or a master set from like Topps Flagship, my definition is usually all of the base cards plus all of the hobby packaging inserts. So not necessarily all of the retail inserts.
Right.
Okay. And when I see that kind of checklist of what people put as a master set on eBay or those types of things, that's usually what they're including in that master set.
Right.
Have you guys heard differently, or do you guys define it differently?
Well, I agree with you that it definitely depends on what kind of set we're talking here. It can have and a lot of people probably have a lot of different answers for exactly what it is. I personally look at it, a master set, as everything in the set that's attainable. Like my friend Ron Marion, who runs Scammers Exposed. He is putting together, a lot of people may know him as 2011 Topps Football. He's putting together the 2011 Topps Football master set. And what he considers a master set, and what he's doing is literally the base set, all the parallels, all the insert sets, everything. Every card that was made that's included in that entire set, he's trying to get to complete, quote unquote, a master set. Of course, that being said, then there'd only be one of them. And I mean, chances of many of them ever being completed is next to nothing, next to zero when you add in those designations. So, I mean, I've always considered a master set to be the base set, all the inserts, maybe not all the autograph lines and all of that stuff, but the actual base set along with those, maybe not all the parallels and stuff. That's when you get into rainbow collecting in my eyes. A lot of different stuff, but I don't know. Master set to me has always meant, like Chris Harris says, base set, all inserts, all variations, not the hits and stuff, but that basic sense.
if we use Series 2, since it's still fresh, just recently released, it would include your base set, of course,
Yes.
and your inserts. I think everybody can agree that that is all going to be covered. So all of your insert sets would be included. And then all of your short print photo variations, all of your super short prints, or even super short prints for Series 2 would be included in a master set.
Right.
So any of your parallels thereafter, of course, any hits would not be included. No parallel sets like the gold foil and the rainbow foil. 150th anniversary from last year. All of that is parallel sets.
Yeah.
When you're looking at Allen and Ginter is another one. It has a ton of non-baseball insert sets. Those would be part of the master set. And so if you're buying it on the secondary market, however, I don't know all that stuff's going to be included. Most likely it's not going to be.
No, it won't be.
I buy a master team set from Brent Williams for flagship, and what is included in that would be the base and hobby only inserts.
Really?
There are 4 short print photo variations for the A's in Series 2. I did not get any of those as part of the master team set. And then, of course, you have the Turkey Reds and whatnot, which are retail only. Those are also
awesome.
Yeah, they're great cards. I think much like a rainbow, there's a little bit left to, it's a little subjective based on who's buying and who's selling. But as a general rule, I think we all can kind of agree it's at least base and inserts.
Yeah, and it's a great question. It's a great question, and honestly, one that I'd never really considered. That there were that many different definitions. But as soon as you asked it, I'm like, well, yeah, I can think of 10 different ways you could qualify something as a master set in your eyes.
Yeah, and it just goes to show that it's one of those things that there is still a lot of variation. And so if that's something you're interested in picking up, don't just go blindly by the title. Make sure you're digging into the details of that listing or whatever it might be, so that you can make sure you're going to get exactly what you're thinking you're going to get. So don't just go by a title, because there really isn't an official standard definition.
Absolutely. Well, what's up?
I was just going to say, I ask Brent Williams every time, because I always ask him for the master team set of the A's. So I know I'm getting the base and the inserts. And then I ask him, okay, so I've got a full checklist of Series 2 here. Right. What is not included? Okay, well, your retail only stuff. So no Turkey Reds in this particular. Your Decade's Best are included, but the Decade's Best Chrome, which I believe came out in box topper packs.
Yeah, they did.
Not. Doesn't mean I can't buy them from him separately, of course.
But I've actually got some of those for you.
Yeah, if he says, here's your $25. I need to know what, like Mike said, I need to know what's covered.
Right.
And then, of course, a lot of it also depends on, as a collector, what are you looking to collect? What do you define as a master set?
Yeah.
What do you need to fall under that umbrella? Because you can go down a rabbit hole of, a pretty steep one at that, if you really want to get crazy.
Absolutely.
The word master is very subjective, but as a general rule, base and inserts at the very least is a starting point.
Absolutely. Well, David, thank you so much for the question, man. And it is subjective, absolutely, and absolutely justified. But Mike, before we get into that second question, I believe we did have another one. We do have a caller on the line, so let's bring in our first guest of the day. He's a regular on the show. You guys know him, Mr. Ziggy No. What's up, man?
Hey, everybody. Thank you very much for having me. I got a great question, and you just made me think about it, Drew. I'm an admin for a lot of Facebook groups, and with all the new people coming in the hobby, we get a lot of new questions. And the one site that I recommend to everybody is Sports Card Scammers. Could you explain a little bit about that for somebody who's new to the hobby?
Sure.
Like, why it's there? How is it used? How do you update it? How do you check it?
No problem. I'm an admin on the page, so I can help do that.
That's why I thought I'd ask you. And also from the other guys, besides that resource, what other resources do you recommend to people who are new to the hobby, who are coming in and want to be able to buy and sell, and they always hear everybody gets scammed, but there are some great resources out there to protect people. So if you guys could share that, I'd appreciate it. I'm going to drop off because my connection's very slow, but I really appreciate that, guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, sure. Thanks, Ziggy, again for the question, and I guess I'll take it first, real quick, guys. When what he's mentioning, if you do anything on Facebook, we do run a group called Scammers Exposed. You can find it. Just search the groups. You can find it. And what it is it is a comprehensive. It's an area where you can go to post your report if you've got scammed. But we also take a lot of time and have an offsite website where there's a database that keeps track of all this stuff, whether it be eBay scams, anything like that. I'll put the link here up in the chat in just a little bit, but it's an excellent tool for people that are new in the hobby and even people that aren't. I mean, some of these guys are incredibly talented at what they do at scamming people. Let's be honest. Some of the new eBay scams I've seen have been mind blowing, how technical they're getting with these, but that's a great resource to have. I would recommend staying away from the forums. It can get to be a little child party in there, but there's a lot of valuable information in the group. But there's a lot of other areas. A lot of times asking for vouchers is always my number one thing. If you're going to do some type of deal where there's any type of thought in your mind, like, hey, this, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Ask for vouchers. Reach out to people look for common friends. Reach out for vouchers. If they don't, someone else in the community will know them. And those would be my biggest pieces of advice, at least.
From a selling perspective, just one other thing that I would add, and it more so pertains to eBay. I know you said avoid the forums, and yeah, on a one-off basis, there can be some nitpicky type stuff and maybe some things that are assumed but not necessarily proven out on there. But one of the most beneficial resources to me that does come from a forum is Blowout. In one of their sub threads has a list of people to block on eBay.
Yes.
Your block list that keeps them even from bidding on your auctions.
Excellent.
Non-payers. They've been, eBay scammers in the past that multiple people have had issues with. That's a resource that I regularly use and just do a basic copy paste into my eBay blocked bidder.
I do the same thing.
And I think that's helped me avoid a lot of the issues that some people have had with some of those eBay transactions. So I would recommend checking out that blocked buyers to block list.
There's a really good resource, good blog called Wax Pack Hero. That's phenomenal if you want to hop on there. Obviously, the Hobby Hotline, our podcasts are all great resources, not to tout, toot our own horns. But starting out is really that question, is how do I avoid getting scammed? I know there's a new Twitter handle called eBay Naughty List. He's trying to put together a database much like Blowouts of people to avoid. In fact, I had posted something from Facebook on my Twitter timeline. The person apparently saw it and reached out to eBay Naughty List and wanted to defend himself. And so that guy reaches out to me and he's like, hey, I want to hear your side of the story. I'm like, time out. I had misappropriated the picture and put it onto Twitter. I'm unaffiliated with the transaction. So there are a lot of things. Just, it's one of those things when you're on the internet, don't believe everything you see. You're going to have to do your research. Be careful. Ask for vouchers, right?
Yes.
I mean, we all see politically based memes on Facebook, and you're like, oh my goodness. Well, understand whoever created that meme had a personal bias, agenda, motivation, and so there might be truth to what was said, but understand it's coming from one person's perspective. So just kind of diversify yourself. Being new is tough because you don't really know anybody yet. You don't trust anybody yet. But if you've been around the block, I'd like to think that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people that are super trustworthy.
Absolutely.
I remember when I hopped on Twitter 10 years ago, we used to do Follow Fridays, and you'd have multiple. This is back in the old days when you only had 120 characters, but you have multiple Twitter handles to try to grow the hobby and understand not everybody's on the up and up, but there are a lot of good people out there. And if you're new, latch on to a handful of people ask for vouches, ask for their opinions before you make a decision. There's no stupid questions. Everybody's been there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why we're doing the Hobby Hotline to begin with, is really for, to share this type of information. And if we don't have it, we can probably find it for you or point you in the right direction.
No, absolutely. I'm sorry, I was getting there was a question in the comments asking for the Wax Pack Hero blog, so I am putting that link in the comments there for you guys. It just like it says, is Wax Pack Hero blog, and Mike does an absolutely incredible job with that blog. Something I've been reading for quite some time. But let's see. Brad says, Mike, can you explain the blowout threads either today or in a blog?
Yeah, so on the blowoutcards.com, there is the forum section. And if you scroll down in the forum section, there is one particular thread that is, I think the title is like eBay, ComC, and other platforms or something like that. And that is the sub-thread that people talk about buying and selling on eBay, buying and selling on ComC, buying and selling on Sport Lots. And one of the topics in there is the buyers to block. And so if you search for that within the eBay or within the blowout forums, you will find that thread.
All right. Well, guys, before we jump into another question or anything, I actually had something I wanted to get everybody's feedback on a little bit, and it kind of follows up with actually, we'll deal with that in just a moment because we do have a caller coming in. So we are going to bring him in. You guys all know him, especially if you're on Twitter, the Caniac Collector. What's up, man?
Hey, everybody. Happy 4th to everyone. Hope you're well.
How's it going?
Good. Mike, I'm not sure how to take you without the mustache, man.
I know. That's what I said.
I mean, you look like a true supervillain and you shaved it, so I'm not sure. Anyways, couple questions. First of all, if narrowing down your PC, now everyone has various PCs. Ben collects the A's. I'm a Carolina Hurricanes fan. We all have various personal collections. At what point do you recommend trimming it down? And what are some of the guidelines people should follow? That's my first question. What do you think if someone was going to trim their collection down, what advice would you give them?
I would, if it was me, at least I would start, the very first thing I would do if we're talking about personal collection, like things that you were collecting that monetary value has nothing to do with in your eyes. And it's just, it's just the stuff that you love. First thing I would do would be separating that monetary value from it and looking at the things that, if you had that finite space on your wall, whatever or wherever it is, that finite space you have, look at it and figure out what would go there. That would be where I would start, at least personally. And then in terms of thinning other things out, I always go through, I have with my East Carolina Panthers collection, lots of just the commons and the rookies, where I have 800 absolute rookies, where I don't need 800 John Beeson absolute rookies. I just don't. So, areas like that. But the big first thing, at least for me, what I always do is I have one spot where I display the stuff that I consider my big personal collection, and what can fit there is kind of what I consider what means the most to me.
Yeah. First off, it's kind of funny that you called in this morning because we were just talking about great resources.
Yes.
And your blog is a phenomenal one as well. And you pose a lot of good questions that really, I can't tell you how many times About the Cards have borrowed your questions for our show. You've been a great resource for us personally. So if you haven't checked out his, we'll give you a chance to let everybody know, after this topic, where we can find your blog.
Yes.
I recently did a video on my personal channel on YouTube, and it was organizing your PC. So it's kind of a one-off, or they're closely related. And first off, it's space. Space always has to come into that's the money and space are the two things that always have to be considered. If you're getting to a point where it's outgrowing the space you have allocated, that's a great way to start deciding for yourself. And we can only answer that on our own. Two questions I always ask myself before I buy anything is, one, is my PC better with this card or cards a part of it? And then on the other hand is my PC incomplete without this? In other words, can I live without yet another AJ Puck autograph in my collection? How many do I need?
Well, he's got
versus how many
80
do I
Bowman.
want?
If he's got 80 Bowman for
Yeah.
you to choose from.
So, if you can kind of break that down within your own head, and then of course finances are the other thing. Am I spending way too much money? Is it a self-sustaining hobby where it's paying for itself, or am I pulling it out of paycheck?
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, I personally ask myself, what, back 7 years ago, what makes me happy? And for me, I decided it was just Ace cards. I didn't want other stuff. Complete sets and whatnot from like the 80s and 90s were great. I didn't get rid of any of that, but moving forward, do I really need a 2017 Topps flagship complete set? Maybe, maybe not. I definitely don't need, stacks of Cubs cards and Panthers cards and Hurricanes cards sitting around my desk, right? They're better in your guys' hands. So it's like, get rid of that stuff, find a new home, keep what I truly makes me happy in a hobby.
Yeah, and I hate to admit it, but I agree with Ben.
I know. It's hard to do, but yeah, I agree.
Those are
freeze over?
the top two things that I was going to suggest too. And even just maybe going one step further on Ben's third point of, what makes you happy is one of the other things that I try to consider is, just because I'm saying this card or this set or this theme is my PC, if it starts to stress me out because I can't find it or because it feels like I'm in a nonstop search and it's overwhelming to try to get it all or whatever, even if I can afford it and have space, if it's stressing me out, then it's might be something that needs to go. And so as part of that whole, does it make you happy? Do you enjoy those cards? Think about, do I also enjoy the process of trying to acquire all those cards too? And if that process is starting to cause you stress or reduce your enjoyment of the hobby, then maybe that might be another thing to consider on, does this really need to be a part of my PC?
Yeah, that's good points. And the fact that Mike and I agree,
that's nuts. Hey, all three of us agree. I'm confused.
Fire to fall from the heavens, and
this feels weird. I don't like it. I don't
haven't
like
got any
it.
texts about hell freezing over yet, but I think they're coming.
It's coming. It's coming.
We need to talk about McGuire rookies or something and get back on track. Come on.
Second question, and I'm going to cut out of here and let you guys answer it. So I understand I call it the girl break. We all collected cards as a kid. I'm assuming we're all close to the same age. We took that girl break. When we came back to the hobby at one point or another in our life, going back to day one, back in, I call it phase 2 of the hobby, what is the one thing you wish you knew then that you know now?
See, that's why we steal all of our information or a lot of our questions because such good information. Before you cut out
of here, you guys have a good 4th.
Have a great 4th, bud.
Real quick, where can people find your blog if they want to reach out?
I'm putting it up right here.
Actually, no, that's inactive. Caniaccollector.com.
You changed it. Okay.
Perfect.
That's it. Yeah. I'm going to cut out of here and listen to your answer. You guys have a great day.
You too. Stay safe.
Later.
So I'll let you guys go on and answer first. Thanks again, Caniac. Always a pleasure.
So first off, before we answer, Mike, what year did you get back into the hobby?
Late 2015.
Okay, so about 5 years.
And I was 2012.
Okay.
So.
And Mike, did you collect as a kid, and what years kind of covered your youth collecting?
Yeah, so primarily 1986 through about 1997.
Okay, so a little longer than.
Yep.
That was my 90s. I was 90s to about 2000, 2002, and then took about 10 years off. That would be me probably.
So Mike, go ahead. You can go ahead and answer it. So you had about a 20-year break, more or less, give or take. A lot happened in that window. So you hop back in 2015. Now you're a lot smarter in the hobby 5 years later.
For sure.
What would you tell 2015 Mike?
I think the biggest thing, I don't really have anything, to be honest. Because of my focus being so much on being a set builder and me being relatively cheap to begin with. I tried to collect a bunch of sets when I first got back into it, but because I was doing that by buying these collections in these big base and insert lots, I wasn't spending a ton on sealed wax to do it. I was doing it by buying these collections later on. So financially, it didn't cause me that much of a mistake. Maybe a little bit more on the feeling overwhelmed perspective.
Yeah.
Trying to put them all together and track down all of the missing cards and that type of stuff for about 8 or 9 of the different 2015 and 2016 releases as I was first getting back into it. Realizing early on, hey, you don't have to collect every set just because you like to build sets, right? And so luckily it wasn't a financial mistake of spending a lot of money, but it was more of that time and quote unquote stress mistake of me trying to put together all the sets when I first got back into it.
Yeah, that was one thing that I really struggled with when I got back into it was I had a very big problem with jumping headfirst and wanting to get everything. When it first came out, if I remember Josh Norman, if Josh Norman had a card, I had to have every parallel, everything, college jersey. It didn't matter. And then the 6th round rookie, I wanted everything. Then I started the Topps Chrome collection. I wanted to get every refractor from every year, which almost accomplished. But if I look back at it now, when you first get back into it, the things that I would probably say to myself or to somebody else getting in to take it in moderation and be very careful, like figure out what exactly you want to, like, have a strategy going in, I guess. Don't just go in blindly, walking into a hobby shop saying, I want to drop a couple $100 nowadays as it is on packs and open stuff up. Have a strategy with what you want to collect and go from there would be probably my biggest advice, because that's what I didn't have. I said I wanted to get back in. Cards look fun. Boom, let's just throw a ton of money at it. And, how that can work out.
That's why Mike's blog and other blogs are phenomenal. That's why we've all done individual stuff on our own pages, or we all have respective podcasts. This show, they weren't available 10 years ago. Yeah, Cardboard Connection was around, and those guys had some great information. I collected from 87 to around 92, 93-ish. My parents got a divorce. I got back into the hobby, walked into an LCS to look at McFarlane's and ended up going home with a box of football cards in 2010. I would say I was getting there revved up until about 2012 when I just dove off the cliff. And the reason that's relevant is, our timelines. That's why I asked Mike when he started collecting, was because back in 87, 88, 89, you literally could collect everything or just about everything.
Yeah, when I started going to the card shops, you guys are a little older than me, but yeah, when I started going to the shops around that time and everything, that's what I remember. You could collect. You could get everything you wanted and anything you wanted when I was a kid. It was nothing.
I think that's the first beginner mistake, and we all have been there and we all have done it, is not having that strategy, like you said, Drew, because we didn't know any better. You want it all. I'm gonna collect this. I'm gonna collect this. Before you know it, you've opened up a product and you have partial insert sets. You make your checklist, and then here it is 8 years later. For myself, I never went back and finished those. Right. One of the greatest insert sets, in my opinion, came out in 2010 flagship, which was the cards your mom threw out, featuring iconic cards on the front with information about it on the back. And it was a 150 card set, 50 per release. And I'm still probably 10 cards away, and I could go on to Sport Lots or hit up somebody like Mike and say, hey, you have any of these for me? But I have to go back and find the checklist. I have to go back and find where I put the cards. I'm sure they're in a binder somewhere in my garage. If we can go back, I think the finances are almost secondary. It's just really focus on what you want your collection to be. And unfortunately, it's going to take 2 to 3 years for most of us to answer that question.
And John and Joe here in Facebook, we do have a caller. I do see on there. We'll bring you on just a moment, bud. But Joe on Facebook actually has a question regarding this, and it kind of follows with what you just said. says, don't you guys think initially it's a trial and error thing where while keeping within a budget? And because in the first 2 years I bought a lot of unneeded junk, I'm assuming is what he meant to say. And absolutely, Joe, that's really what we're saying. And that's why I think what, like Ben was saying, utilizing these resources that we now have, whether it be podcasts, websites, there's other sites that just focus on data, utilizing that stuff can help a great deal. And so it's very good to know early on in the hobby that there's a lot of places for you to go to find this information. Because
go read those blowout forums,
yes,
and learn what's in there. Go watch some Mojo breaks, and they break, about every type of product. So you can look and see what types of things you would get on the higher end stuff,
right,
on the lower end stuff. They break it all, and so without actually buying it yourself, you can at least see what is in there and what types of things are going to come out of those boxes and cases. And that can help inform your decision too. Go to a card show, go to an LCS if there's one close by, and look through the singles and get a hands-on feel for what some of those cards and sets are like. And so there's a lot of resources out there for you to help narrow that focus and do some of that trial and error without spending a lot of money to do it.
And do a top-down study on yourself. I think we've all mentioned this at one time. What's your favorite sport? And then you go down, what's your favorite team? Go down, what's your favorite player? Go down. That's going to help isolate, really what your focus might be. Doesn't mean you can't pivot. Doesn't mean you can't color outside the lines. But ask yourself these questions. What are my resources? And to Mike's point, it was great. I had Mojo Breaks live stream on last night, and they were busting a case of Tier 1 baseball. And I picked up some of this stuff on the secondary market. I'm like, as I'm watching these 3 cards being pulled, I'm just like doing some math in my head of what I think they might be worth. I'm like, why would anybody open this product off of an LCS shelf?
Hey guys, we've got 2 callers waiting in line, so we're gonna get a couple of them on the line now. First up is TX Car Dude, back from not in Vegas, but what's going on, man?
What's up, guys? Hey, there's a lot to unpack here. I've got two huge points. I've only been in the industry or the hobby back for 2 months, so I feel this has been this is a pretty relative product. And I'm a child of the 1988-89. My first real card was a 1988 Michael Irvin rookie card. So Dallas 90s rookies, Dallas Cowboys, back then collected football and baseball. Got out, of course, and everybody knows Pete Alonso pulled me back into the hobby.
Okay.
But one of the things that I started doing whenever I first jumped in was to really listen and to look and to learn. And I started buying Topps flagship 2019. I bought everything I could get my hand on. Blasters, wax. I said, I want to build this set. First time I've ever wanted to build a set. And what I knew was that I spent a ton of money and I only really built one set. And I said, there's got to be a smarter way to do this. Right. So I found Eric from Beckett, started listening to him, then found Mike. And when I found Mike, I really, really started to listen to what Mike was saying. And those of you who are new and back in the hobby, just read and listen to what Mike has to say. And I know this is going to be a little bit of a Mike love fest for a second, but what he teaches and what he shares has taken his 3 years, Mike, before you really got into it. I think it was 3 years. It's taken his 3 years and compressed it into a month and a half, and taking his experience and compressing it into a month and a half. I wanted to, then I started doing analysis. I wanted to collect hockey, I wanted to collect baseball, and I wanted to collect football, all rookies. I wanted to collect 4 top tier rookies in each of the sport. And then I did a little bit more analyzation. I wanted every single rookie, and I'm like, that's impossible. So then I looked at it again and I went, okay, what do I really, really, honestly and truly love to chase? What do I really love? And I love rookies, man. I love
Right.
rookies. So I started collecting just straight first Bowman Chrome. So and forget everything from the past. Okay, forget. This is what, starting from 2020, I'm going to start now and go for every single first Bowman Chrome rookie card, and then
Okay.
most Pete Alonso's because I'm a big, huge fan, and then from there maybe every Topps rookie card. So a
Nice.
very, very narrow focus,
Mm-hmm.
and then from there, then I can go back and say, okay, once I've completed these, what do I go back and
Right.
I look from my
Yep.
youth that I'm like, okay, what is that card? What is that card? Is it the 90s Emmett Smith rookie? Is it the the old Texas Rangers, the Nolan Ryan rookie?
Right.
Is it those? But start now, take your break. The three things that I wrote was build your tribe, find your peoples. I met Steph yesterday. No, day before yesterday, I met Steph and his
Nice.
wife. It was really cool, really cool to meet them. Learn, read, absorb everything that you can, and don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid of 85 McGuire rookies. Don't be afraid of that, and just.
There he goes. He's gone.
And then have patience.
Yep.
Have patience, and then don't be afraid to just give of yourself and
Excellent
pour
advice.
out, because when you pour out, you receive so much.
Yep.
And finally, I'll jump off because I know Herman's waiting. Just the tribe that I've built and the love that I've felt from this
Sure.
hobby, and just thank you, Mike. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, John. Thank you, Steph. Thank you, Uncle Rich. Thank you, Dr. Beckett. Thank you for all the information that you give. And just, I really, really appreciate it. It has taken my I'm starting to cry here for a second. This is weird. It's taken my hobby experience. Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
there you go.
you.
We'll throw it
It's
in.
taken my experience and just open my eyes and really, really just appreciate everything that y'all do. And I tell you what, the hobby hotline, I tout it and I throw it out there as much as I can. Keep watching. If you're sitting out there at your desk and you're wherever you're watching, and you're like, oh man, I don't know. We're gonna treat you with kid gloves. We love you. You're in the hobby. Call in.
Yeah.
Call in. It's okay. It won't hurt for a second. I mean, you guys know how much I pick on Ben for 85, and he threw it out on Twitter that I was dead to him. But I knew I'd already sent a card because I knew
Right.
it was gonna come back. So
Exactly.
just don't be afraid to jump in and just say hi. So
Yes.
get off. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for all that you do. Y'all stay classy, hobby.
Absolutely. Well,
Brad.
happy 4th, man, and
Happy
thank you
4th of
so
July,
much,
everybody.
buddy.
So I've got two things.
Yeah,
that
and then
I
we got
really-
another caller. So
Yeah,
what's that?
just I'll make this real quick. I feel Brad for two reasons. One,
Mm-hmm.
Dallas Cowboys fan. I mean, it doesn't get much worse than that. I guess if you're a
Right.
Cowboys and Lakers and Yankees fan, like you see once in a while.
Yeah.
I also feel bad that he thinks the 85 is a true rookie card. But
Mhm.
on the other side, I feel really good for Brad because, again, I don't want this to come across as conceited, but there's some really good stuff out there right now.
Yeah.
People are creating a lot of new content with blogs and podcasts are popping up like weeds. You still have to kind of
And then disappearing
what's
like
relevant
weeds
to you.
quickly.
There's that too. But man, I'm so blessed to be collecting right now with guys like the two of you and all of the rest of our co-hosts that are so smart.
Yes.
And I ask questions of you guys all the time, despite the fact that my PC is ultra focused. And
Yeah.
what can we learn from each other? So much. I mean, it's literally like being on the bench with nothing but all-stars at the NBA All-Star game, and you're looking like, yeah, maybe I know I can always get better and smarter.
Absolutely.
And I can't tell you how many times I ask questions of Mike or Ryan Cracknell or any number of resources.
Yep.
It's such a great time right now to be able to be a part of this hobby. I wish some of this
really
stuff
is.
was available 10 years ago.
And
I
mean,
want to say just, thanks, Brad, for sharing that, because that's the exact reason that we're doing this. We were all in that situation, and that's the reason we wanted to come together, is to help share that knowledge, celebrate the hobby, help other people get back up to speed quickly, and figure out where they see themselves fitting into this hobby. And so that's exactly why we're doing this. So thank you for sharing that.
Yes, absolutely. And, I mentioned it a little bit on episode 100 this week. I just kind of took a look back at everything, and that was one of the biggest takeaways, and one of the things that in the 3 years of really doing, let me get that potograph, which has morphed into so much more, this show and everything else, was not only the amount of just people that I've met and good people that I'd call friends, acquaintances and stuff, but this community, this family, and this close-knit family that we've built here is, something amazing. And it is exactly what we want to do here, is, help you guys as much as possible. So thank you so much for that call. But we do have someone else on the line, so I want to go on and bring him on. He's been patiently waiting for just a while. 3B Collection. What's up, dude?
Not much. How y'all guys doing?
Hey.
Doing good.
So this is weird. Mike has no mustache and Herman has no Braves hat.
I know.
It's like Twilight Zone.
I can go get it. It's just right here.
No, that's all right.
I don't want to throw you off your game or nothing. Actually, I had a question for Mike. I've been listening to your podcast, and I enjoy him as well as I do Drew's and about the cards. But
thank you.
You're always talking about being a self-sustaining hobby, and I know that you're real big on that. But my question was, how do you do that and keep it from, I guess, interfering with like your PC, your personal stuff? How is it? Do you find that it kind of interferes with that, or?
No, I wouldn't say interferes, because for me that it allows me to add to my PC at no cost. And so when I'm buying these big collections from Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or big bulk purchases from the LCS or whatever, part of what I'm doing first is peeling off the things that I want to keep for my PC that I'm going to add to my PC, and then I'm selling off the remainder of those things to generate extra funds. And so for me, it's not really ever at an expense. The sole reason that I do the buying and selling is so that I can add to my PC at zero cost.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, it does. I've kind of been trying to do something myself to be more sustaining for my own hobby, to keep from taking out of my personal finances, which makes my wife happy.
Yep.
But and it's just, and it may be the way I'm going about it. I don't know. I just feel like it's taking time away from me fooling with my personal stuff, and which is what I want to do. And I feel like my personal collection, I'm kind of zoned in to where it's not real broad. I've got 2 players I PC and 1 team, and that's it. I do like to build the flagship sets.
Yep.
But that's not really, that really doesn't take a whole lot of time, like chasing down parallels.
Yeah, I think, from a time perspective, you're right. There are periods of time where, even though I've sorted this collection and I've pulled together these 25, 50, 100 cards that I want to keep for myself, there's times, because I need to sort and list the rest of that those 100 cards sit in a box for a few weeks or a month until I get the rest of that sorted before I get them added to my binders. There's times where, like right now, I've kind of restarted my pursuit of the 70s Hostess products, right? And I hadn't done much of that at all for a couple months, but now I'm 100% or 98% caught up with any of the sorting and listing that I have to do. And so yesterday I spent some time building my need list and starting to buy those cards on sport lots that I needed. But part of it is I had a few $100s sitting in Sport Lots credit because of the buying and selling that I did, so that I'm able to just start checking them off the list at zero cost. And I've got all of those coming to me from the money that I made in the month of June from my Sport Lot sales. And so to me, there's, at any given time, I might be sacrificing some of that available time for my PC, but I look at it more in that holistic picture that there's a time and a place for everything. And when in a big picture, the full scale of it all, I still have that time and I still have those funds available to be able to focus on the PC as well.
Okay. I appreciate it.
And Herman, just to piggyback on Mike a little bit, to make it 100% self-sustaining hobby is very challenging and probably not realistic for most people.
Right.
There is time associated, whether that means you got to get up an hour earlier to ship some stuff or stay up an hour later so that it doesn't affect your work life and your family time. Only you can answer what your schedule looks like and what you're willing to invest from a time perspective in this. But consider this: if it costs you an extra hour and a half a day to do this, and you can cut your out of pocket resources out of your paychecks by 50%, is that worth it to appease yourself, to appease your wife? And so there's always going to be offsets. How deep do you want to get into it? I've thought about doing the same thing that Mike does. You buy collections and you sell it on Sport Lots to help ease the burden on my financial burden throughout of my paychecks. And in fact, I think I called Mike a couple months ago and said, hey, can I call you? And that phone still hasn't rang on his end, but it really comes down to you. How much money are you actually spending? Is it affecting your personal budget? Do you want to dive down this rabbit hole? Because there's a time commitment, because now you're dealing with other people's money. The second I pay you for something, you've got to pull that and fulfill that order within a reasonable amount of time. And if you answer, that's cool, because now I can cut my out-of-pocket cost by 50%, 80%, even 5 or 10%. Maybe it's worth your time, even if you do it on a much smaller scale, just trying to focus on listing stuff on eBay and not a ton of base on Sport Lots like Mike does as well. Base and inserts, 18 cents a piece does add up, but is it worth it for you and your time? And only we can answer that for ourselves.
Yeah, I do a little bit of eBay. I've never dealt with Sport Lots as far as selling. And I do some other things. I won't get into it on here, but
real quick, guys, we do have another caller online. I'm gonna bring him in because we don't have much time left, and I don't want to leave him hanging. It is Uncle Rich, so
that's okay. You can leave me hanging anytime.
No, gotta let Uncle Rich in. How's it going, buddy?
I'm good. How are you? And as I wrote in the chat, Mike and I taped a podcast on this topic. But one thing we discussed that we didn't really discuss thoroughly when we were talking about self-sustaining, and I'd love to get his opinion on this, is there's also, when we use the example we had been talking about in Twitter, but we also talked about the personal enjoyment part of it. And I think there's something to be said for the personal enjoyment as well when you're thinking about what you're doing with the hobby. Right now, Heritage we talked about Heritage, but Heritage is in my sweet spot right now of when I collected as a youth. So when I see card number 5, Gary Sanchez, it transports me back to a young 10-year-old boy opening up and seeing the Thurman Munson card, the beautiful card. And it's a similar enough photo, you get transported back. There's a personal enjoyment to that money can't even come close to buying.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a piece that you've got to factor in, is the enjoyment factor. I think that's part of, the ongoing dialogue with what I do. There's some people that say, well, that's just work. Yeah, it's self-sustaining, but you're just giving yourself a lot of work. And part of my argument back is, but I get 2 or 3 or a month's worth of enjoyment about going through these collections because I have fun doing that. And it just so happens that I have fun going through the cards, and I have fun making money on going through those cards. And those two things together are a winning combination for me. And so I think that the enjoyment aspect has to factor into it too. If you hate sorting and listing and processing, if that just seems like something you're going to dread doing, and self-sustaining or not, you're not going to have fun doing it, right? And so that's
I love sorting.
think about for yourself.
That's my favorite part.
If you like the sort, please come over, man. I got about 7-8 hours of work for you, bud.
I got a lot more than that for you in my show supply for you.
Yeah, well, guys, before we wrap up, there's one thing I did want to touch on. 3B, Herman, feel free to hang in, and chill for the rest of the show as well if you'd like. But that has to do with blockchain. We've had a couple of people in the comments, Ziggy No, of course, bringing it up. And I figured we'd talk about it here just a little bit before we wrapped up. And that's because a lot of people had been frustrated when, you got your National Treasures boxes and stuff, and they added in extra cards in addition to your hits that were blockchain cards, digital-only cards. They came with no physical card, where their first run of blockchain cards did have physical. Well, now it seems that they are the new blockchain that they're putting out, it appears, is going to have, or at least this round is going to have physical cards again. So I guess we'll just open it up. What do you guys think about all this? Do you think this is the start of them paying attention to how frustrated people were with the digital only part? Or do you think this is, like when I had Panini on talking about it, they said this would be an ever-growing thing. Do you think this is just part of the process and it's just going to bounce around, some physical, some just digital? What do you guys think?
So, real quick, I think we should take a moment just to explain what blockchain is and its purpose, just in case anybody's out there listening.
Sure, absolutely, sure.
Familiar.
Absolutely.
So essentially, it's a peer-to-peer network. It's a digital ledger of sorts
this is blockchain, let's be honest.
This is just blockchain from a financial perspective.
Air quotes.
So basically to transfer digital currency like cryptocurrency and whatnot, if I'm transferring it to Mike, it goes on a transparent ledger that's very, very difficult to hack and manipulate. But it shows that I just sent $100 from my blockchain to Mike's blockchain, and now all three of you guys can also see it. That's like the Cliffs Notes version. So in other words, now I've got a Zion Williamson digital card, and I'm selling it to Mike. Now it goes into Mike's possession, and the ledger is updated that's now Mike's Zion. So the issue with having physical cards is if I now have this physical Zion in my possession, in my home, in theory, it should go on to the blockchain ledger when I sell it to Mike. And then the problem is, what if Mike goes to the card show in Texas and sells it to Uncle Rich? If that ledger's not updated, that ledger's only as smart as the information that is updated within it.
Yep.
And so it creates its own provenance. And so if it's not updated accordingly, this is not going to work. And I really don't understand why blockchain needs to be brought into this hobby.
It doesn't. Well, blockchain, the technology itself, and Ben, you know this, the blockchain and its technology has a bunch of uses that could be used in this hobby, such as tracking cards, tracking patches, such as patch swapping, database type of stuff. There's tons of great uses for it, but a marketplace is where I think is where they fumbled it with trying to do this type of just whatever this. It's not, for one, let's be honest, it's not true blockchain. There is no publicly distributed ledger. It is not a true blockchain. That's just what they're calling it. But there is some very, very strong value in the blockchain technology and what it can do. I've been very vocal on the show about it. I do not like how they rolled all of this out. I don't know. It was a very big risk, I thought. I do think you'll see blockchain around in the future for a long time, but I do not think it will be in any way, shape, or form the iteration that we have right now.
And I think that's a good point, Drew. And that's why I don't really have a problem with it, because I'm all for innovation and I'm all for testing new ideas and testing concepts. And I'm a firm believer that not every product has to be for every collector out there.
Exactly.
And so if they are experimenting with some new concepts and some new ideas, and they're going to attract some new people who want that and like that, great, more power to them. If they try it and it completely flops because everybody thinks it's dumb, then great. They're going to learn from it and do something different. But I think you're right. In general, there is a lot of potential for blockchain in general, from a supply chain perspective, from an authenticity perspective, swapping and all of those types of things. There's going to be ways to leverage that digital ledger technology in the future, tampered packs, whatever it might be, right? There's ways that it's going to be able to help improve the overall business of the hobby,
right?
That we have not yet realized. And so by experimenting, trying some new things, I don't think there's a problem with that. And it'll help test what works, what doesn't work, what do people want now, what will people want in the future. To me, it's just all part of the process of innovation. So I personally don't have a problem with them trying it.
What do you think, Rich?
Hold on. Here it is. Mike and I disagree on this point, and we snuck it in under the hour mark, which is phenomenal.
I know.
I did not want to get off this call knowing the last time Mike and I discussed something, we agreed. Unacceptable.
There you
thanks,
go.
Mike.
Well, at the end of the show, boom, perfect.
Okay, one comment on blockchain is that collectors have always liked physically owning a card.
Yep.
And if you don't have a physical card to own, if it's all virtual, and we saw this with E-Tops. E-Tops lasted many years, but never really gained a critical mass of acceptance. Blockchain sounds like a more advanced version of it. Now, there are positives, as Mike points out, the technological advantages. But if you own the card, you want to actually have most of us want to have the physical card we own. We want to hold it in our hands. We want to look at it. We want to say, oh, this is pretty or this is ugly or whatever, but we want to have physical possession.
Yeah.
I can't do physical possession, online.
I think you're right, Rich. And for me personally, that's why I'm not interested at this point, because I want to collect cards that I physically have. That attachment to the piece of history, that's all something that is very valuable to me. When I go back and I buy vintage and knowing that there was a 9-year-old Rich Klein holding this card potentially, that's something that means something to me, but it doesn't mean something to everybody. There is a good number of Star Wars collectors, some non-sports collectors that love these Topps digital apps, and they're spending money to buy these digital only cards. And so there is a segment of the hobby and a segment of the community that doesn't care about that physical card, even though I might, and even though that's the only thing that I really care about when it comes to collecting. There are a segment of the hobby that doesn't care about that physical card.
And a lot of it is a lot of the younger generation too. And I was actually at a card show last week. Y'all know I had to hop off Hobby Hotline, but when I was at the show, the amount of kids that I saw actually at a show with physical cards there for them to look at, I saw 3 of them that were there that were actually using those apps while they were walking around a card show with cards there. So it's definitely
that's wonderful prevalent. Because that's getting a new generation in. So we don't have a problem with that. Our generation wants to hold the card. If the next generation wants to be all digital, go for it.
Go for it.
And I'm so happy, Drew, that you're on all day today. The last 2 weeks I've had to be like what Tampa Bay, the Tampa Bay Rays called the bulk guy. I'd rather just be the closer guy like I am today, so it's much easier on me.
There is the one issue with digital cards in general is when you're spending real money on it, right? If you just download one of these apps and you have your digital collection, but once you start spending real money on a digital collection, you really better hope that whoever is supporting that app doesn't ever decide that they're not going to not support it, because then there goes your digital. I'm not a big fan of digital. I mean, if I wanted a digital collection, I can go type in every T206 card on the checklist and right click and save it to my desktop. And now I have a digital T206 collection. I hope, to Mike's point, hey, innovation never should be blanked on, so to speak. But at what point are you being more smart for your own good? And I honestly don't think Panini understands the blockchain process nearly well enough to roll it out.
The way I always looked at it is, man, if you can't build a website that is fully functional and operational, and you still haven't linked your blog to your main website, do you really need to be running blockchain technology? Like, I mean, let's baby steps. Let's link our blog to our website first.
There was something too that there's a scene in The West Wing when Leo McGarry is just an old curmudgeon, and President Bartlett looks at him and says, "Were you just born at the age of 55?"
Yes. Yeah.
Mike just said 9-year-old Rich Klein. I'm not 100% certain Rich Klein was ever 9. I just think he was birthed at the age of 52, and
My wife says I was hatched, by the way. So, but let's end this with a Casey Stengel story.
All right.
52 World Series, Casey Stengel takes Mickey Mantle out to Ebbets Field to show him the outfield walls and how to play the caroms and what you have to do. And Mickey's really not paying attention because he's Mickey Mantle and he's this phenomenal athlete, and he actually could do all that. And Casey goes, "Does he think I was born at the age of 60?
There's one other question that came up.
We'll do that real quick.
I wanted to touch on real quick. And I don't know, honestly, that there's going to be a good answer. And the question was this: if Mike Trout doesn't play this year for whatever reason, will that impact the value of his cards?
His cards?
And I have
of his cards, or
no idea.
Did he ask of his cards or all cards or baseball cards?
Of Mike Trout cards.
Okay.
So if Mike Trout chooses not to play because he's worried about COVID or whatever it is, will that impact the value of Mike Trout cards going forward? And I don't know, because we've seen superstars not play and it had zero impact. We've seen superstars get hurt and their prices go down. We've seen superstars get arrested and it impacts their cards. We've seen superstars get arrested and zero impact. So will it impact his cards? I've got no idea.
I've got a general. I agree. This is uncharted waters. We really have nothing to compare it to, so we don't really necessarily know for sure. But if you're asking me, and this is something I'd love to continue either on let me get that Polygraph Show Sunday or on Monday Night Heat when we do this, because I think this is an excellent question, but I don't think they do it all. I think it has depending on the reason. If the reason is to stay healthy, his family, whatever, then I don't think you're going to see someone like Trout fall off as opposed to other players that if they said this or done that, yes, absolutely would have an effect. Trout, kind of one of those guys that is almost above and beyond that, as long as there's a legit reason and he doesn't come out and be some arrogant, jerk about it, which I don't see ever happening. But I also think there's so much money tied up in Trout by a lot of people that spend a lot of money in this hobby that I don't really think they're going to let at least the big cards and the things like that fall that much. And I think by the time it gets around back to by the time the next season's starting, by the time it's over, by the time we've had an effect on that, maybe they drop a little bit. Maybe I can finally pick some of them up, but they'll go right back up.
So Trout has been so transcendent for the last 8 years that he might not be affected.
Yeah.
But if a player will say Manny Machado, who also
100%
signed in the offseason,
he
doesn't play for a year or two because of all this.
Tanked.
He could really have all the interest in his cards could go away.
Yes.
He's now in San Diego. He's, even though he got all that money, he has not built quite the same Hall of Fame level career. If something happened to Mike Trout tomorrow, on one level, he's not technically a Hall of Famer because he hasn't played 10 years. They would probably come up with an exemption to put him in. So he's on a little different level than everybody else. He's been the best player in the American League for the last 8 years. But you get somebody a level or two below Mike Trout, and they sit out the year, and
they're done.
And they're done. And I think that's the difference. But it's a fascinating question.
It is.
Yeah. And the real answer to the question is that there is no answer, right?
Yep.
Mike had kind of alluded to this. Maybe that's a lazy answer, but if you can predict what happens in this hobby at any given moment, you're going to earn yourself a Nobel Peace Prize hobby edition, right? Because we all predicted. I personally predicted the tank of the hobby, the winter is coming moment, back in March. Right. And then all of a sudden we see things skyrocket. Project 2020 comes out and then Bowman finally releases first edition. And they release, their regular base set. And the bottom line is we don't know what tomorrow holds in the hobby.
Of course
Stupid
not.
things happen. Crazy things happen. And when you think you know what's going to happen, you don't. I mean, it really is a smaller, isolated reflection of the economy at large. We just don't know what the S&P is going to do on Monday morning. It could it could tank and put us in a further into an economic depression, or it could rise and the rise of the phoenix and raise so high that people's stock portfolios jump again. I mean, who knows? If you know, then you're about to make yourself an awful lot of money in the economic world, the real world. Same thing in the hobby. We just don't know. Is Trout going to be affected? Probably not. But is, Machado or insert another name? Maybe. But what is it? It's a marginal decline, 5%, 25%.
Well, I mean, that's why it is, just it's one of those things where we discuss. But the good thing is we wait and we get to find out, and we'll get to see if hopefully it doesn't happen and we don't have to see. Hopefully these guys play. Hopefully everybody's healthy. Hopefully this isn't an issue. But I want
to add one thing, Drew.
Sure.
Ben pointed out winter was coming. We thought winter was coming. Mm-hmm. Well, at the Upper Deck Diamond Conference, and I do want to note that they have now canceled their 2021 conference for January and have pushed that to 2022. They're not even having that this, next year. The president of Upper Deck began the conference by saying winter is coming. Upper Deck thought winter was coming in January.
Right.
And we went in the totally opposite direction. It's the last time I ever agreed with Ben Wilson. Because I agreed with him.
Whoa.
Right,
okay,
right.
So
and that's actually the last time I ever agree with him, and I'll leave you all.
There you go. Well,
no way. The apocalypse isn't upon us.
Happy 4th of July, everybody. We have the pleasure of being able to agree or disagree with each other.
Absolutely. And Rich, please, if you got the time tomorrow, feel free to jump on the Let Me Get That Potograph show. I did want to take a second real quick to let you guys know we do have the show Monday Night Heat like we always do. But tomorrow night, I am going to be doing a Let Me Get That Potograph live show at 9 p.m. Eastern. Some of the guys here, I hope, will be joining. Brian Gray will be joining as well. So please tune into that. And Uncle Rich, hope you can make it into the office as well, buddy.
I'll do my best. It depends on what the wife says.
Of course, I know how that goes. But thanks so much for joining us, Rich. And Mike, Ben, anything you guys got before we wrap it up today?
Yeah, we're going to sing happy birthday to you because you had a birthday yesterday. So everybody now, I thought my mic was going to get muted. So it was Drew's birthday yesterday. Mine is 2 weeks from today. I accept flowers, A's cards, 87 A's rookie cards. I mean,
True McGuire rookies only, though, guys.
That's correct. That's correct. But if you want to throw me some 85s, I'll take those too.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. Drew. Thanks, man. Thank you guys so much. But guys, that's gonna do it for this week's show. Thank you so much for joining, and as always, make sure to tune in this Monday for another awesome Monday Night Heat. And if you're not busy, check out Let Me Get That Potograph this weekend, Wax Pack Hero, of course, and About the Cards. And Uncle Rich, of course, he's always doing tons and tons of stuff all over the place. We'll be talking with you guys soon. See you later.
See you.
Perfect.